The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R.Covey. Let's jump into it, guys. What you will notice when you first get into the book is that it starts off before it gets into the seven habits. It has a section called Paradigms and Principles. And so he goes into these concepts. And so, what is a paradigm? A paradigm is basically how someone perceives reality. And the author goes into quite a bit of detail explaining why it's so important to understand that everybody has a different paradigm, and the way that they perceive reality could be very different to your own. So it's very important to understand that difference. These paradigms are built around your conditioning, your background, your environment, how you were brought up, things like this. He also talks about paradigm shifts, okay? And he gives an example here about a man sitting on a train, and there are some children running around the train being very loud, quite obnoxious, swinging around the poles and whatnot, and disturbing everybody on the train. And this man is sitting next to the father of these children. And the man is thinking to himself, like, is this guy going to do anything, or is he just going to sit there and just not do anything about this, This guy must be like a really irresponsible parent. So anyway, he lets it go on for a few more minutes, and then finally he has enough, and he just says, "Excuse me, sir, would you mind looking after your children? They're really disturbing the rest of the train." And at that moment, this other man slowly lifts his head and says, "Oh, yes, I'm sorry, sir. Yeah, I guess I'll do that. I'm very sorry about that. I've just come from the hospital, and my mother passed away around an hour ago." So in that moment, this man's paradigm was completely shifted because, for that 10 minutes while he was sitting there, in his perception of reality, he was thinking, this guy is an irresponsible parent who obviously lacks social skills. And, in that instant, his paradigm was completely shifted. And the way he thought about this man was completely different. So a paradigm shift is basically any time when your thought pattern or the way that you perceive reality breaks away from traditional thought. He also says in the book that the quickest way to change someone's behavior is to change their paradigm. He then goes on to talk about this concept of principles thinking. So throughout this book, you can think of these 7 habits as principles. This book is really not tactics and tricks that you can use, but it is guiding principles. And one thing you will notice, and I noticed this when I was first going through the book, a lot of these habits just kind of seem very simple and kind of like common sense. But, as we all know, simple doesn't always mean easy. So yes, these habits are simple, but they do take time to implement into your life and embed into your psyche. That's why, as I mentioned earlier, this is a book that you can pick up year after year after year and reread it, because the principles never change, whereas tactics do change. Another common theme throughout the book is this line of maturity, or in the book it refers to it as the maturity continuum. So as you can see, there's like 3 phases of maturity, and the first phase is the dependent phase. Okay, so this is all about I. So all about you. So you depend on other people. You have to do this for me. Okay, why didn't you do this for me? Okay, so think of like a child when you're growing up. You're fully dependent on your parents and the people around you. The next phase up is independent. Okay, so this is about I. I can achieve this on my own. I don't need to rely on other people. And the last phase is ultimately what you want to achieve and what this book preaches, which is this interdependent phase. So this is all about we. So making relationships with people, whether it's a marriage, family, the management team at your business. This is about getting really good at making synergistic relationships with people. This line of maturity pops up throughout the book, and we'll come back to it a few times throughout this video. The last main theme that pops up throughout the book is this concept of emotional bank accounts. And I really like this concept from the book. So basically, he gets you to imagine that everybody you have a relationship with and everybody that you meet have these, imaginary emotional bank accounts within them, okay? And these bank accounts you can deposit into, or you can take withdrawals from. There's a heap of examples in the book, but I'll just go through some of the ones that I found here. So one way that you could make a deposit into someone's emotional bank account is just simple things like small acts of kindness. Okay, so saying thank you, saying please, small acts of courtesy, things like this. Obviously, a withdrawal would be the opposite of that. So being rude to someone, using derogatory language towards someone. Next one, the golden rule. Don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself. Okay, I think we all understand this golden rule. Next, he says to apologize first, even if you don't think that you're in the wrong. So this takes courage. Obviously, people that have an ego or they're prideful, they never want to be the one to apologize first. So he encourages you, if you want to make deposits into people's bank accounts, be that one to have the courage to apologize first. The next point, and I really like this point, this was to make sure that you clarify expectations with everybody that you meet. So whether that's in business or in romantic relationships, make sure that from the get-go, you're clarifying those expectations with the other person in the relationship. You need to know who owns the role and what's the goal. So what are you both hoping to achieve and who does what? The next one here was keeping commitments. If you tell someone you're going to do something, commit to that. That's making deposits into people's bank accounts, emotional bank accounts. Withdrawals, always canceling on people, saying that you're going to be there. People expect you to be there. And then hey, sorry, man, I can't come. Okay. That's withdrawing from their emotional bank accounts. The next one was don't gossip and talk behind the backs of others. I mean, we all probably know people that do this. We may do this ourselves. Okay, I know in the past I was probably guilty of this. However, now for myself, I have a no gossip policy, which I've had for many, many years now. And I got that from this book as well as other books, to simply not gossip about others. Because, I mean, if I don't know about you guys, but for myself, if I meet someone that's gossiping about people behind their back, my immediate thought is that, okay, this person is probably doing the same about me when I'm not in the room. So that's a definite withdrawal, gossiping. And the last one, which I found was very useful and I would like to implement into my life going forward, was this concept of give effective feedback. And he talks about I messages versus you messages. I'll just read some here. So for example, an I message would be, I've been having a problem recently and I feel somewhat neglected. Versus a you message. You really are a selfish person. You have a real problem. Okay. Now, can you see the difference? They're both touching on the same topic, the same subject. Okay. However, you can feel the difference between the way that they're delivered. When you use you messages are something that really labels someone. Okay. You're labeling them, and that is just something that people don't react well to. Okay. So obviously, this would take practice, but if you can deliver your feedback by using I messages instead of you messages and not labeling people, that is another way to deposit into those emotional bank accounts.